The 2024 Tundra is officially ready for adventure. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things. This is going to be the second update on the Tundra build, and we are so close to actually taking this thing on about a 2-week overlanding trip through Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and then eventually ending back here in Colorado. For the past week or so, I've been running all over the Denver area, visiting a bunch of different friends, True Automotive, Sherpa Equipment Company, and Free Spirit Recreation. And this truck is sitting at yet another new level, and there's just a few more tweaks before I hit the road in a few days, and I cannot wait to actually test out everything that we've done to this truck so far. Now, if you guys haven't seen this truck on the channel before, there's already a bunch of videos of me testing it stock, picking it up at Quality Toyota out in Kansas, and of course the first round of mods. You can find a playlist for that right up here in the corner. Now, all of the mods that we're going to be talking about in this video kind of happened sporadically. It was over a bunch of different days, and I was kind of driving all around to get everything done. So we're just going to kind of talk about these things, starting at the front of the truck and working our way back to kind of the grand finale. So starting off up front here, of course, you guys know that I wasn't going to take any kind of departure from C4. I absolutely love the armor that I had on my Tacoma, and there are some new products out there for 3rd gen Tundras, starting with this guy right here. This is the new Low Pro, fit for Tundras, of course, and on the idea of keeping the truck kind of OEM plus and kind of stock-ish looking, we've kind of made a bit of a departure from that at this point, but at least the front end still looks pretty factory. I had this bumper installed at True Automotive, of course, and it was pretty straightforward. This thing is really just replacing the front valence, and it does add a little bit of protection, but the main reason for me adding this was, of course, for a winch. If I had a winch that time that we went out with the truck being in its stock form, and when we got stuck, that would have gotten us out of there in like 5 minutes. So I'm happy to have that on there now. Hopefully I don't have to use it. It's really just kind of like an insurance policy, but it's in there now. So for this bumper, it's very minimal cutting. It's really just replacing the front valence here. We do have cutouts for whatever type of lights you want to run. I, of course, am running diode dynamics throughout. So I have these things wired into my Garmin power switch that you may have caught in the first modification video of this truck. And these are backlit in amber, which really ties in the rest of the front end of the truck. And they're also bright white when I actually turn them fully on. This C4 Low Pro bumper obviously gives us tow hooks, which the truck does not have from factory, which is kind of weird in my opinion. We ended up having to connect to my lower control arm in the past, and that's how we got unstuck from that one situation. So now we have properly rated recovery points up here, and of course the winch. Now, on the topic of recovery gear, I'm basically doing everything at a one-stop shop, and that is going to be Agency 6. I've used their products a lot in the past, and now that I'm building this new truck, there are a lot more products for me to kind of test out. So basically Agency 6, front and back, all the way around this truck. Starting up front here with this bright orange winch hook. Agency 6's main company color is orange, so that is just another reason why it's a perfect fit. The reason I actually like this as opposed to kind of a hook is that there's really no moving parts on there. It's retained onto the winch cable with a pin that drops through and then a solid plate on top that screws into place. I have this same winch accessory on my van, and I absolutely love it. It's super strong, super durable, weighted for weight way more than this truck will ever pull, even pulling itself out. So big fan of that. And then I have their fair lead, which fits on here too. I have the really thick version. They also make a slimmer version, which I do have on my van, and so far I'm kind of liking this look. And now for what's inside of this Low Pro bumper, I actually went with something different this time. I'm running a Come Up 12,000 pound winch in here, and this is a company that I have not really explored with before, but it is a USA made winch in here. The guys at True nailed the wiring on this thing, and I will kind of show you how we positioned everything. There are big openings in the front of this bumper, which you can reach in and get to your line if you need to, and we have the actual clutch for the winch over here. The guys at True keyed this properly, so if I put it up, it will disengage the winch and I can pull some line out, or all the way in its down position, now it's ready to pull. This is a fairly large winch, and it has a ton of capacity, which is really overkill for a truck like this. I probably could have went with a 10,000 pound winch, but this new C4 Low Pro bumper has a ton of room inside of it. So I figured if I'm gonna do it, might as well go big. And again, hopefully I never have to use this thing, but when I do, you guys will see it on video. Now, for anyone who's interested on details of like this bumper and winch, I can get more into depth in the future, but this is just a broad overview of what we're working with. We ended up mounting the winch controller to this cross beam right here, which sits behind the active air dam, and it's nice and hidden. It's not blocking the radiator too much, and I can still get down here to turn on the wireless capability, and I can still plug in right here. There's a ton of room in the engine bay of this thing, so we're being pretty smart with the use of space in here. Fits perfectly, and I'm excited to use that. So if I tap that button on the inside, that will turn on the wireless capability, but I can also do it hardwired if I need to. Pretty multifunctional, and the front end has wrapped up pretty nicely. Now coming around to the side profile of this truck, I talked to a lot of people who watched the last video, and you guys said that when I'm standing next to this thing, kind of look like a little person. Do I look like a little person right now? The truck is huge. I mean, we have the lift kit from Westcott Designs. I really installed that to kind of bring things up and level it out. If you haven't caught that first video, it's factory TRD tuned by Bilstein suspension. So these are parts that you can get from Toyota, and I absolutely love the way this truck is sitting right now. And the truck is just really big. I swear I'm not that short. How tall am I? I'm like 5'10", maybe 5'11" on a good day. But yeah, the truck is just really big. I swear I'm not like 4 feet tall. So now looking at the truck from the side, it looks pretty crazy. And this is where we're taking that departure from like the OEM Plus look. But there's a whole reason why I did this. And at the base of it, the truck is still just an SR5 Tundra. I really didn't go too crazy, although aesthetically it looks so cool. It looks like a crazy build. It's really not that crazy, and we'll get to that whole back portion here in a second. So moving a little bit further back the truck, the next modification that is different from the last time you saw it, right up here we have a brand new rack from Sherpa Equipment Company. They are a local to Colorado company, and since this is kind of like the Axis cab of the Tundra world, they actually didn't have this rack out yet. So this project started maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I actually paid the guys at Sherpa a visit, and we 3D scanned the whole truck. So I know I'm speaking to a very small number of Tundra owners out there who actually own a double cab like this. Most of you probably have a Crew Max, but if you are interested in a roof rack for the double cab, these are available now, and I absolutely love the one on my Tacoma, and this one is no different. We're talking 1/4 inch thick aluminum, super strong. It's not super invasive either when you are actually mounting this thing up to the top of the truck. There are precision machine plates that actually rivet into the roof, and then if I want to take this rack off, it's just 2 screws on each foot, and then I can lift the whole rack off of the truck. Everything is sealed with silicone, and those plates that are on there stay in place. So that is useful for my application because it really makes things kind of modular. If I do end up running the Kimbo in this truck, I can pop that off. That way it can sit lower to the cab. Now I opted for the full wind fairing up front because I don't want to add a ton of lights to this thing. I would have to take up another space on my Garmin power switch, and to be honest, there are so many lights up front on the grill of this thing already, I probably won't even need something up there on the roof. These crossbars you can obviously move around, you can mount a ton of gear to them, and the only thing that I really mounted on this Grizzly rack right now is some more goodies from Agency 6. This is my orange shovel, which again would have come in handy when we got stuck in snow a little while ago. We really just got everything dialed in here over the past like 2 or 3 days now, and I'm kind of placing accessories around where I think I will use them the most, but this may not be the final form. I may end up moving some things around, but for now, kind of flows together really nicely and everything pops as well. Now moving towards the back of the truck, this is where we're getting kind of crazy, some more Sherpa components here, but I want to give a quick shout out to some of these guys right here. These are some of my official partners on this build and another build that we will probably get into around mid-summer time, but we of course have Diamondback, C4 Fabrication, Free Spirit Recreation, Sherpa, and Firestone Tires. You guys are gonna see me kind of comment on a lot of these products a lot more as we're out overlanding and camping with the truck, and I can't say thank you to those companies enough for supporting all of these videos here on the channel. Speaking of that, Jake, come over here. I'm actually out here today with my buddy Jake, of course. Yeah, you. We actually just cut these logos out of Psy Camo and put them on the truck at Jake's shop, and you also ceramic coated this thing too.
Yep, just ceramic coated it. A little more protection. A lot of you still, I'm getting comments and phone calls from people saying like, when are you gonna wrap his truck? And it's already wrapped. Obviously he bought a white truck. I wrapped it white just to help protect it a little bit. So it is wrapped.
Wrapped up, so it's good to go. So yeah, we use Adams Polishes ceramic coat, just like the quick spray coating. And this is like the first time that it's been off-road since then. And I mean, the dirt will just kind of fall off it. You can see it.
You can feel the ceramic coat with it.
Yeah, it feels good. If you guys want to get your vehicle wrapped, Jake's your guy around the Denver area. Even if you have to drive in, you can opt for ceramic coating like this too. And I've put their ceramic coating on a bunch of my vehicles now, and it makes washing, especially big vehicles like this, so much freaking easier.
Yeah, it's like putting sunscreen on your wrap. Really
yeah, for sure. Thanks for that, dude.
Yeah, man.
Let's look at this rack now. All right, so now coming around to the back of the truck, this is where we kind of also created a new product, the double cab Grizzly rack from Sherpa. That's gonna be available on their website. If not now, very soon. This is something that's fairly new too. Jake actually has like a really early version of this as a bed rack on his truck. So he went up to Sherpa, got one of these installed as a bed rack. And when I saw the fit and finish and quality of this thing, I knew that I wanted to reach out to Sherpa and see if there was some way that we could adapt this thing to a Diamondback cover. I talk about Diamondback covers all the time, and it's always gonna be one of the first things that I do for my application of overlanding. It's super strong. It's a great base layer for whatever kind of tent and rack setup you wanna put on here. But the rack support over the years has been kind of lacking. There's really only like 2 different rack companies, and I've ran both of them. They worked fine, but I wanted something a little bigger, more robust. And so I was talking to my friends at Sherpa, and I basically said, I love the rack that you guys put on Jake's truck, and I know you're making them for a lot of different platforms out there. I was looking at different options on the market, and I figured if they could manufacture just a little piece that is sitting right behind the cleat here, we could probably adapt it to the Diamondback. So that's another reason why we 3D scanned the truck, and they were able to manufacture these parts in-house, get them powder coated. We did some test fitting with it in its raw aluminum form, and it actually looked pretty sick. I'm not one for raw aluminum, but against the white truck, it honestly looked really cool. We still ended up powder coating it, and this is really like the first prototype, but also like final production version of this new bed rack, which is compatible with the Diamondback. Now going forward, we kind of learned some things when developing this, and essentially you're going to be able to pick your tower height for how high you want the rack to sit, and this will work on basically all different platforms. So if you have a F-150 and you're looking for a bed rack, you can go to Sherpa, but then also if you're running a Diamondback, the same towers that would work on a regular bed rack where you're just mounting it into the side of the bed, we made a specific cut back here on the tower so it will work with the Diamondback. It basically just bolts down to the cleat, and then you can reinstall the cleats as well. So I wanted to retain these cleats for a lot of different reasons. I mean, I think it really just like brings the whole look together for the Diamondback cover, but it is also useful. This is where I hang my diesel heater in the winter time. I just put it on perfect bungees and hang it next to the tire. So Sherpa was able to kind of make subtle changes to their design. That way all of this stuff works together, and it does look crazy, but I am a huge fan of it. Now again, just like all of their roof racks, this is made out of 1/4-inch aluminum. They have a press brake in-house, and they design and manufacture everything, which is really cool. This thing is so unbelievably stiff. I mean, I push on the rack and the entire truck moves. The Diamondback is already a super solid platform, so it's just like putting one super strong component on top of another, and I think this thing is going to last me a very long time. We have about 6.5 feet worth of panels down the side here, and I'm not exactly sure what I'm gonna do with this space. On the driver's side of the truck, I did end up mounting some Max Tracks, which I need with me on every adventure. And then I have some orange accented Agency 6 handles, and my idea behind these right now is my tent is currently set up for driver's side entry, so if I need to get up here for any reason, simply got some handles to hold on to there, climb into my tent. Could even step on these things because they're billet aluminum, they're super strong, and there are so many slots and holes all over this thing. So if you're into kind of creating and designing your own functional setup for camping, this is going to be a great option for you. Now for what's sitting on top of this rack, we're not gonna get into this too much because I've talked about it before, but also I'm not quite done. There are a few more tweaks that I need to make in the next few days before I actually leave for this trip that we're talking about. But up here is a Free Spirit Evolution V2 short. I've talked about this in videos in past, but I'm gonna kind of reiterate it again here. I do not like when tents go up over your cab. There's a lot of reasons why people do that, and it makes sense with a camper style setup because that's kind of the best way to use all of the space. But when I see someone running a super tall cab height rack with a tent that for the most part probably doesn't even need to go over your cab, I feel like that is bad function and form. I'm the type of person who really thinks about every little detail going into this. I mean, as you guys can probably tell by how the truck is sitting right now, but for this rack, we actually are kind of reusing a part that already existed. So these towers are for a mid-height rack, but we get about 2 extra inches with the Diamondback cover. And that happened to be the perfect height for a 9.5 inch tent to go up and be completely flush and level with the roof rack. Now, originally, I wasn't going to run a roof rack. I was just going to keep the tent down a little bit lower, but I wanted the functionality of having some space here so I can take something like the ladder for my tent. I can store that on top of my Diamondback cover, or maybe any cases that I have. There's a ton of space, and now my bed is basically completely open. Now, I have not decided what I'm actually going to put in this space. I actually really like that it's sitting in a way that I can still see out of my rear view mirror, because before on my Tacoma, I was running it well below the cab and I kind of lost that functionality. I only had my side mirrors. So again, there are a lot of really small things that went into the design of this whole setup, but it ended up working out pretty perfectly. So, Free Spirit Recreation Evolution short. This is the V2 tri-layer air core mattress, everything you guys know and expect from Free Spirit tents. And the way this thing mounts up right now is basically just dropping carriage bolts straight through the rack. So you don't need to use any kind of clamps, you don't need to get anything extra. This thing is super secure, and I'm actually going to tweak a few things to make this even more secure in the future. But right now, driving down the road, whether it's a gravel road, a little bit of washboard, it doesn't seem like this thing moves at all. This tent weighs about 160, 165 pounds, I believe, and previously on the Tacoma, I would actually notice that weight, but on the Tundra, I don't notice it at all. I'm really surprised with all of the things that we've done to this truck so far. I thought the ride quality and kind of the noise inside of the cabin would take a little bit of a hit, but the truck still drives great. I don't notice this weight back here at all, and it's still really quiet, even with the new roof rack on there. Now, speaking of the weight and everything that we've added, I was mentioning the Westcott Designs lift on here. One thing I did actually change when we were at True the other day is I decided to upgrade my rear springs. So I was using factory springs before with the Westcott Spacer lift, which basically sits on top. You can see that in the previous video. But now we have the weight of the Diamondback, a little bit of extra weight with this aluminum rack on here, and then the tent, camping gear inside once I get this thing loaded up, and also this rear bumper back here. I knew I was putting a lot of this weight on there, so I decided to upgrade to a taller and stronger spring from Dobinson. There are a few different kind of like flavors you can pick from, and I went for, again, kind of like the biggest and baddest. This spring will give the truck about a 2-inch lift, which is going to be too much for a stock truck, but coupled with the Westcott Design preload collar in the front, it makes this thing pretty dang level and even gives you a little bit of rake, which is what I'm looking for in a truck because the load back here is going to vary. So I want to have the truck a little bit oversprung in the rear until I, of course, put a lot of gear in here. So these springs give me a 2-inch lift, and they are rated from between 550 to 770 pounds. And so far with my calculations with the Diamondback, I'm not exactly sure of the weight of this rack, but this tent, a little bit of camping gear, I'm currently sitting at about 467 pounds. And that is, of course, without the rest of my camping gear. I don't have the tent completely loaded up with all of the things that I typically keep in there. So I think once this truck is set up for adventure, when we leave for this trip in a few days, it's going to be sitting at about that 550 mark, which means it's still a little bit oversprung, but I would prefer the truck to be oversprung and give me a little bit of rake than be undersprung and be kind of like sagging in the rear. And now, icing on the cake, this is something that might be a little bit overkill and a departure from that OEM Plus look, but since I decided to upgrade the front bumper with the C4 Low Pro, I also had to do the rear so it matches. And this is the C4 fit for a 3rd gen Tundra Overland Series bumper. There's a lot of good qualities when it comes to C4 armor, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but this is some of the best armor that you could possibly put on your vehicle. I really love the way C4 angles and really designs all of their armor. It fits with the truck, especially with the Sherpa stuff. I've talked about this in the past, but the design elements between Sherpa and their roof racks and bed racks and C4 armor, they kind of fit together like peanut butter and jelly. So with this bumper, you're still going to keep your factory sensors. I'm not really deleting anything here. This plastic plate right here is for your blind spot monitoring. Those actually don't move locations at all. We did have to pull the sensors off the factory bumper and relocate them. That is probably the most tedious part of doing this install. And you could do a lot of the installs that we're talking about right here by yourself, but I would recommend going to a shop like True, because if I tried to install this bumper, which is a little bit heavy, there's a lot of wiring that goes into it, I would have taken a long time, and we knocked this out in just like a couple of hours. So as far as the other features go, we're still using the factory hitch on here. So nothing is affected as far as the towing capacity goes. Everything here is just how it comes from Toyota. We now have some nice recovery points, just like up front. We got a license plate light, reverse lights, and we of course have cutouts for whatever lights you want to run. I, of course, am running diode back here as well, and Billy at True actually wired these in a pretty cool way. So when I have the headlights of the truck on, these are backlit in red. So it kind of adds like 1, 2, 3 lights, which is now covered up front. So we basically just have more safety back here. And then they're also wired into the reverse lights. So at night, when I'm backing into a parking spot or into a garage, these little lights right here from C4 are fine, but this sheds a lot more light. It's almost blinding at night, which is kind of a nice safety feature. Your trailer plug is relocated up to a space that is much easier to get to instead of being like down underneath here. So still kind of factory, looks a lot cooler, provides a lot of protection, and this one isn't high clearance, so we're not actually cutting the bed sides like you may have seen on my Tacoma. There's just a little bit of plastic trimming around the back here, and it just it looks so good. I love this truck so much. The Tundra side camo that you did. This texture black matches the Diamondback.
Because it's so minimal, it goes well with the texture on here, and like this tent has texture as well in some places, so. I mean, even this too.
It's like I thought about it.
It's like it's
like, hey, this would work. So this is how the new Tundra is sitting the beginning of May, going into this kind of like spring and summertime. Camping in Colorado is a little difficult right now because we just got snow last week, even though it's like 70 degrees today. So we're headed south on this 2-week trip. We're gonna be hitting Overland Expo. And if you guys want to come to Flagstaff and see this truck in person, you can find me in the C4 fabrication booth. We'll be at Expo Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So come check it out for yourself. Ask me any questions you have in person, or if you can't make it, drop your questions, comments, concerns in the comments down below, and I'll try to answer anything as best as possible. So huge thank you to all of these partners that I've talked about: Diamondback, C4, FSR, Sherpa, Firestone Tires, Jake at Lucid Wraps, all the guys at True Automotive. This build has come together pretty quickly. It's still not over the top in my opinion, and I'm just so stoked on it. I keep saying how much I love this truck, and I really do. I'm glad that you guys pushed me in this direction to pick up a Tundra as opposed to the new Tacoma. I may regret it a little bit once we get onto some tighter trails, but the comfort and functionality of this truck is just phenomenal so far, and I'm a huge fan of it. So if you guys are new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe. I make new videos every single week. As always, thank you for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.